It's day 454. It's also August 2nd, 2020, and we are in Ray, North Dakota. You ever wake up in the morning and ask yourself, what am I doing? And more importantly, why? Yeah, me too. Hi, my name is Craig, and this is my story. A story about life out there. For visuals while listening, search Life Out There on your favorite social media platform or use the links in the podcast description. That stretch from Wolf Point to Ray, only about 120 miles, just shy of a 2-hour drive for most. But us, out here, just too many photo ops. And time? Well, that just feels different out here. The High Line, what folks around here call Highway 2, rolls out in front of you feeling both endless and untouched, but ultimately connecting everything. And leaving the Fort Peck Indian Reservation, where the Yellowstone and Missouri rivers have carved their way through history, the land is open, rugged, speckled with cattle and framed by the Rockies. The occasional farmstead breaks the horizon, each standing like a defiant mark of human existence against that vast prairie, and passing through small towns like Poplar and Culbertson, places where grain silos rise higher than any building, and the town's single gas station doubles as the town's diner. All reminders of how different things are out here. And crossing into North Dakota, the land doesn't change so much as it settles. The Missouri River stays south, and the landscape flattens into rolling farmland, fields of wheat and canola stretching out along the High Line, their colors shifting in the breeze and the morning sun. Williston, well, that seems about as big as it gets out this way. A boomtown riding on the waves of oil and agriculture. But with a population of 29,000, we'd pass that one by as well, a bit crowded for our liking. And we only had to trek another 30 miles or so to find Ray. And its population of around 800, well, that felt just about right. And it didn't hurt that a sign as we entered Ray announced the Ray Rough Rider Rodeo. Balloons tugged at the sign, and just to its right, dozens of horse trailers, stock trailers, and a sea of cowboy hats told us we were just in time. We may have missed the wild horse stampede back there in Wolf Point, but we'd catch some of the rodeo life here in Ray. And just past the rodeo grounds, a city park alongside the river, complete with RV hookups. It was perfect. Now, we may have traveled 100 miles or so, but we were still deep in the Assiniboine and Sioux territories. After centuries of following the vast buffalo herds that roamed these plains, they were joined by the European explorers and later American settlement. And it's that same old story, but this time in North Dakota. The arrival of the Great Northern Railway would draw folks to the area in search of these fertile farmlands, and the town was officially settled in 1902, named for a railway official. And by the early 20th century, Ray had become a hub for agriculture, with wheat farming and cattle ranching driving its economy. As the oil industry in North Dakota expanded, especially with the Bakken Formation boom in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Ray would experience more of an economic boom. Rig workers, drillers, roustabouts, and truck drivers would flock to the area from across the country, looking for those high-paying jobs. Now, the ups and downs in the oil industry meant the same for Ray. Large fluctuations in population meant Ray had to work to keep up, housing, infrastructure. But through all those ups and downs, Ray seems to have settled on being a quiet little town along the High Line, population 800. And its history as a classic Wild West town, complete with saloons, all distant memories. And it turns out that stumbling smack dab into the middle of Ray's annual Rough Rider Rodeo would lead to an afternoon of reminiscing and memories. A weekend rodeo, filling the fairgrounds with those horse trailers and cowboy hats. The unmistakable scent of freshly cracked bales of hay. As the sun sets, the buzz continues. The bright lights of the arena cast long shadows as cowboys and cowgirls readied their horses. The sound of leather creaking, ropes snapping, and hooves shifting against the packed dirt filled the air. The announcer's voice echoed through the speakers, calling out names, times, and scores. The crowd, families, ranchers, kids with sticky fingers from cotton candy, all leaned forward in their seats, watching broncs buck and barrels spin. The air thick with excitement, the kind you can only find in places where a rodeo isn't just entertainment, it's a way of life. And it only took one stroll through the festivities to decide that Ray wouldn't be a one-night stop. The nostalgia had hit hard. This wasn't just any rodeo. It was a glimpse into my own past. A flashback to the teenage years spent on horseback, racing around arenas just like this one. A couple of days had slipped by before we finally pulled out of Ray. Dust still clinging to the tires, and memories settling in, just like old friends. And maybe, just maybe, it was that weekend in Ray that planted a thought in my mind, one I wouldn't fully realize until later. Maybe Fargo wouldn't be the last stop on this trek east. Maybe this trip would lead me even further, back towards a sleepy little farm town called North Branch in Minnesota. The place where I'd spent so many of those hours in a saddle. We were up early this morning, the fairgrounds empty and the campgrounds to ourselves. I kicked open the door and let the boys out for a morning run. Dougie, off to check out the river. Billie had a different plan. Bolting out across the park, at first in pursuit of a squirrel, but he quickly abandoned that adventure, choosing to instead climb around 20 feet into a massive oak tree and perch himself on the first limb he came to. He'd spend the next hour or so up there, gazing out over the park and the river. I guess my plan for an early start had apparently been hijacked. Billie would decide when we'd hit the road, when he was done enjoying the view, and decide it was time to climb back down out of that tree. As Dougie and I waited for Billie to grow impatient and rejoin us, I thought, you never know where a road can take you. I looked out over the river, into the horizon, and I thought, I wonder what we'll learn there. Turns out, this thing called life comes with a lot of rules. Maybe it's time to break a few. Because you can. No, seriously, you can.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.